China's Kagan attack on Iran. Among King Bahram's entourage was a man named Nezami, whose lineage traced back to the royal family. Nezami was an elderly man with a sharp mind who managed affairs efficiently, and King Bahram always valued his presence and held him in high regard. Nezami had 3 sons, each of whom brought honor to their father. One of his sons was a wise scholar with deep thoughts. Another son was responsible for collecting taxes, and King Bahram would send him to oversee tax collection throughout his kingdom and report back to him. The third son served in the army and was close to King Bahram. In fact, the affairs of the Iranian kingdom were managed by these 3 individuals, while Bahram himself spent his days hunting and his nights indulging in wine, leading to rumors spreading everywhere that King Bahram was only interested in pleasure, and had no concern for governing the country, or understanding the issues faced by his subjects. What better time than now to take advantage of this situation? Among them, Kagan China became greedy and decided to attack Iran, preparing an army of 300,000 soldiers. He crossed the Jain River to invade Khorasan in eastern Iran. Upon learning of Kagan China's army, Bahram lost trust in his soldiers, viewing them as pampered individuals who lacked a warrior spirit. Additionally, the army commanders were divided, with some secretly communicating with Kagan China, expressing disloyalty towards Bahram and considering him a naive and pleasure-seeking leader. They even proposed to Kagan China the idea of eliminating Bahram, or capturing him and presenting him as a prisoner. In this atmosphere of betrayal, Bahram found it difficult to trust anyone and pondered his next move. Consequently, he harbored little faith in the court and military officials. Eventually, Bahram made a decision to head west instead of leading the Iranian army towards the eastern border. One day, he mounted his horse and set off with a small group of troops, appearing to be going on a hunting expedition with his falcons. However, in reality, he was fleeing the palace. Rumors spread that Bahram, the king, had lost his resolve to rule the country and lead the army, as he lacked the confidence to face the Chinese Khan, and had chosen to escape instead. The news reached the Chinese Khan that the king had abdicated the throne, and now fortune had smiled upon him. All he had to do was take a step forward and become the owner of the kingdom of Iran. When the Chinese Khan learned that Bahram had disappeared, he was no longer worried. Instead of organizing the army and overseeing China's affairs, he indulged in feasting and revelry, spending most of his time in pleasure. He suddenly fulfilled all the things he had always desired to do until he was satisfied. Bahram did not neglect his duties, instead, he worked hard to improve the affairs of the army. His messengers regularly reported from the camp of the Kagan Chin. Bahram had only 300 experienced and warlike riders from all the armies, who were all united with him like pomegranate seeds gathered in one skin. Bahram went to the sacred Adur Gushnasp fire temple to praise the kind God and ask for his help. After praying to God, Bahram felt that God would help him protect Iran. He then made a speech in front of his faithful companions. He said, "In this vast world, a body full of grace, each part unique in its own special place. Iran, the heart that beats with passion true, a sacred flame that warms the world anew. The speaker boldly speaks this truth untamed, with pride and honor, never feeling shamed. For Iran's heart, a vital, glowing spark, guiding us through the light and through the dark. So let us cherish, in this world so wide, the heart of Iran, with love and with pride. For in its beating, we all find our part, a symphony of love within the heart. The whole world is a body, strong and bold, with Iran as the heart, a tale untold." He then gathered the remaining army and headed east of Iron Shah via a shortcut. Bahram, who was aware of the Chinese Khan's complacency, and saw him as a sleeping rabbit, decided to take a risk and strike him at night. Finally, on a dark night, he acted on this decision. The Chinese army was taken by surprise as arrows rained down on them from all sides. They fought with swords in hand against an invisible enemy. Despite their efforts, they could not defeat Borum's skilled soldiers in the darkness of the night. King Borum stood in front of the enemy army, splitting their bodies in half with each strike of his sword. As the king's sword grew sharper, the Chinese army became more frightened until victory seemed imminent. Borum declared that the dawn of victory is near. He attacked the Chinese army from both sides, causing chaos in their ranks, and infiltrated their hearts. The Iranian army's fierce attack made it seem as if a lion had fallen among them and a dragon had been captured. With confidence in the enemy's defeat, Borum bravely struck at the heart of the enemy army, leaving the ground littered with Kagan soldiers' bodies. Finally, the Chinese army retreated desperately towards the Jian River to escape the clutches of Borum and save their lives. Borum gained so much booty in this battle that the scribes could not count it all. After the victory, King Borum sent a message of peace to the people of that region. Anyone who visited King Borum's court congratulated him on this triumph. The bards sang, and Arab poets composed poems praising the victory. The king, who had a deep appreciation for culture and art, rewarded them with valuable gifts. Among the treasures of the booty, thousands of camel loads were dedicated to the fire temples, and a significant amount of gold and silver was distributed to the poor, ensuring that no one in Iran was left in need. After this victory, Borum summoned all the officers and commanders of the army, and after they all gathered under the royal pavilion, Borum opened his mouth to criticize them and address them, saying, "The army must be ready for both peace and war. You have been chosen to support and guard the people. But I have not seen any of you in any battle. Your swords remained in their sheaths in times of necessity and danger. I have not seen any of you step forward and take the brunt of the enemy's attack and reclaim the homeland. One officer boasts that he is from the lineage of Iraj, and other claims to be skilled in archery like Arosh. You all consider yourselves as Rostam, but none of you are in the front line of defense and attack during battle. All of you commanders who should be at the forefront of the army are hiding in a corner with the excuse that our king is always busy with revelry, and a king who is not aware of the situation is better off not being on the throne. If I indulge in wine, it is to keep away from the sorrows of the world. But at the same time, my sword is always ready to shed the blood of enemies. I am like thunder and lightning during a rainstorm, with wine in one hand and a sword in the other. Just as I sit at the banquet, I am also eager for the work of war. My sleep is short, and I am always half awake and always on the lookout for the enemy, even in my dreams. Whoever makes wisdom their guide will never get drunk when drinking wine, and if I choose to drink, I can bring the crown of the Roman Caesar under my feet. Even if I am drunk and asleep, my fate and fortune are awake, and the stars are aligning in my favor. Although the days have passed in revelry, you have seen how I responded boldly to the arrogance and invasion of the Chinese Khan. Only weak dogs do not sleep well and then slack off in their guard duties. If a dragon sleeps in a cave, even male lions do not dare to approach that cave. When Borum Shah spoke these words, all the commanders agreed with him and considered his words wise. They said, "God has placed the crown of kingship on Borum's head, and the efforts of the people against God's will are worthless." Many were striving to attain the crown and the throne of the kingdom of Iran at the same time as you, but none of them could compete with Borum, and the worthiness that we see in you, we did not see in anyone else. Who else can shoot an arrow at a target in the body of a leopard while hunting, or dislodge a whale's tooth from its place? Sometimes he collects tribute from China, sometimes he forces the Roman Caesar to obey. He is a lion-hearted man, who with 300 soldiers forced 300,000 enemies to retreat. Although we have heard a lot about the bravery and courage of previous kings, what we saw in the war of King Borum, none of them had done, and none of them could win in such a battle. His arrow shatters a stone like dust. Borum's intoxication is a sign of his intelligence, because his sleep is like wakefulness. At the same time that he drinks wine, his enemy becomes drunk and unconscious. He is wiser than all the wise men and powerful in the happiness of the people. Bahram is a wise king who needs no one, and his rule will remain eternal as long as the world stands. We, Arabs and Persians, are all ready to sacrifice our lives for your ideal. Then the king ordered gifts from Egypt, Morocco, Oman, and the Khwarezmia, including gold, musk, clothes, maidens, and Persian horses that could pass through seas and mountains, along with Indian rubies, to be presented to Noman, to show appreciation for him and his soldiers who helped the king in the war against the Chinese Khan. Noman was very happy with these gifts, thanked the king, and returned to the land of Yemen.